All right, all right, all right. Welcome, loyal listeners, to another episode of Agents Influence Podcast Conversations with me, Jason Cass, and today I am here with Mr. Jim Harris. You may have probably heard me talk about him before. Matter of fact, if you're a loyal listener, I guarantee you've heard me talk about him before. He was brought into my mind by Jeff Roy, who's a champion inside the Agency Intelligence Mastermind. Posted a video about a speech that he did, I believe it was in Toronto. I could have been wrong. Did a speech and kind of talked about some things that I had never heard before. Maybe we'll talk about a little about that today. But I'll also, key thing to say here is that Jim also is going to be the keynote speaker on Wednesday morning of Indie Tech on August 29th. And if you've heard any of my promo videos, you know that every time I talk about Jim on the promo videos, I say that I promise you, Jim will be the talk of the showcase experience. I promise you that. And I tell people that all the time because I've seen and witnessed it myself. Jim Harris, welcome to the podcast, sir.
So great to be on, Jason.
Yeah. Very rarely, I think a lot of times you can have a best-selling author on. They're everywhere, especially when you go to the Amazon bestsellers. But very rare do you have an international bestseller like we had with you, Jim. But then, if I'm correct, it's been translated to 80 languages or more. Am I right about that?
It's been published in 80 countries.
Published
in
80 countries. Okay, that's even better if you ask me. Because make an impact. It feels good when you make impact in your community, right? Feels good when you make impact in your industry. But when you know that you're leaving footprints across the world, that is really, really cool. Kudos to you, Jim, for that, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, what did you write it about?
So this book is on disruption. And many people go, what's disruption? Well, right now, Uber is worth more than every taxi cab company in North America added together. And so while the taxi industry owns billions of dollars of assets in the form of cabs and limousines, Uber doesn't own a single vehicle. But what they have is a widely distributed app. Now, I work with a lot of CEOs, and I've worked with CEOs of cab companies, and, they say to me, Jim, we're spending $250,000 developing an app for the smartphone. And I think, good for you, because I don't know about you, Jason, but the reason I got my smartphone is not to download 20 Toronto taxi apps and key my data into each one with my fat thumbs. But, I don't just work in Toronto. I'm in Shenzhen and in Stockholm and in Rome. And do you think I'm going to download 20,000 different taxi apps globally?
Great
No.
Great point.
They don't get it. So they're all spending $250,000 to develop an app I will never download. And they need to think at a higher level, what I call a meta level. If globally they developed one app, call it something like Global Taxi App. I know, Jason, I'm a brilliant marketer. Global Taxi App. I would download it in an instant, and it would compete with Uber and Lyft. But because the independents are not thinking at a higher level, Uber is rolling over them. And in fact, the largest yellow cab market in the United States used to be New York City. And Uber and Lyft crushed it to the point where during the pandemic, yellow cabs only had 5% market share. And so how do you take the largest yellow cab market in the entire United States and crush it to nothing without understanding or responding to disruption? And so this, it's a fascinating case study, but for insurance agents and independent insurance agents, there's a very powerful lesson in this case study.
Darn right there is, and what's amazing is sometimes we talk about this in our technology, in our industry, Jim. Actually, our independence is actually what holds us hostage because we want to do it our way, and our way is the best way. And someone will come out with a good piece of technology and no one will use it because it doesn't do this one or two things. And it's like, well, your business is different than ours. I mean, I think a lot of industries know that they're different, but when it comes to retail services, and we are a very unique industry, and then we're very unique in the fact that we all do it differently, right? And so that just gets to the point where once again, our independence is actually what kind of holds us. Sometimes in a systematic, and I hate to say it because I'm not about bureaucracy and about big federalism, but sometimes things work easier in that because we have the same standards. Let's put it that way. So Jim, when you talk about disruptive, the word disruptive sometimes I think makes people think like disrupting means, I think they mean them going out of business, right? I think that's one way to look at it. But the other way to look at it is saying it's interjecting itself into your life that you do every day and making you look at it a little bit differently. Would that be the best way? How would you say that?
Absolutely. So pre-pandemic, I had a client who's one of the largest insurance firms in North America, and they believed that the pen, ink, had magical properties, and only ink could bind a new policy. Okay, so this poor frickin' sales rep has to drive 2.5 hours west, meet with a prospect for 45 minutes, hopefully invoke the magic of ink in signing a new, binding a new policy, and then drive 3.5 hours back in rush hour traffic. So because legal and compliance in this company, which I won't name, said for 30 years that only ink can bind a new policy. And then the pandemic hits and nobody can meet anybody. And, sales immediately go to zero. Well, 30 years of legal and compliance saying only ink can bind a policy just went out the window the next day, right? And now they use DocuSign. Well, was this really a legal regulatory compliance issue, or was it a mindset problem in the heads of legal and compliance, or was it legal and compliance, exerting political power within their bureaucratic structure? Whatever the answer was, this sales rep now can pitch 8 people a day by Zoom and do deals by DocuSign. In fact, his sales have gone up. Right. But it's interesting for me that it's only when we're forced to do something differently will we begin to question the way we've always worked.
It's
and therefore,
so weird.
It is strange. There's this saying, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And here, the pandemic, oh my God, horrible, and millions of people around the world died and all sorts of stuff, but it forced us to think differently in organizations. And for that, we can be grateful.
It really is. It's the silver lining, I guess you could say, of the whole downfall. And I know there's people who are listening and you lost relatives and lost family members, and believe me, I did as well. We all probably knew somebody, actually the most important person in my life, I lost. So I get that. But at the same time, when I look at, and even the person who I lost would be happy to say, wow, regardless, it did push this thing forward and to make us see it's so crazy that it happens that way. And that's what it takes. But that's what it takes sometimes. And what you say is so important. The way that people are forced, I've got this story that I wrote about a long time ago, and it makes me want to bring it back, and it just has to do with the fact that in the 1800s you had a person who was going door to door, knocking on people's doors, the salesman was, going into somebody's house, sitting down, and he had a close ratio through the roof, right? Because he was getting personal with these people. He was in their house, and then he got a horse, and he could see more people, right? His expenses went up, but he could see more people, but he was in their house longer, so his closing ratio started to come down. And then you can say the car and how he could drive across counties and see more people. Then you can say the phone and how we're able to call across countries now and reach other people to sell them. But during each one of those, they became less and less and less involved. and it was more of a quick sale, and they killed that relationship. And one of the things that we saw with social media and really seeing now with Zoom and video conferencing is we've actually gotten both of the best worlds, right? We've gotten the fact that we can still now see a lot of people more than we really ever could. But now, right now, I'm in your office, right? You're in my office. We're in each other's office. People know when I see people, they'll comment about things that are in my office, right? When you see people, hey, you've got that thing on your shelf or whatever. So that becomes that intimate thing again. And I think it's real easy to look at all the negative things that technology can do, but holy cow, if we can just put that aside for a minute, the way it's enhancing our lives is traumatic, or is unbelievable. And that's why I always like to add on to that word disruption, because disruption sometimes can be negative, and it's not if you really understand that we're trying to enhance. It's disrupting your business model, making you see things differently so you can enhance the relationship that you have with your customer. And I think that's what they can't get past. What do you say about that?
Well, we need to experiment, tinker, toy, play. When kids are little, they know nothing. And so how do they learn? They learn through play. And ChatGPT came out in November, and it, in the first 5 days, attracted 1 million users, fastest growing tech ever. After 2 months, it had attracted 100, I feel like Dr. Evil, 100 million users. 100 million users in just 2 months, making it the fastest growing consumer app ever in the history of the world. Like, when you get stats like that, something is happening, and you should start to begin to play with it. And so I've talked to one CEO who says, hey, Jim, I'm saving 3 hours a day, because what I do is first I have ChatGPT research the industry of the client I'm about to go into and find what are the big pain points. So let's say it's a plumbing customer, right? It's a CEO who owns a plumbing company. What are the top 7 pain points of customers who deal with plumbing companies? And it'll give you those 7. And then here's an email that I classically write to a prospect, just so you can learn my voice. And then here is the client I'm thinking of pitching. What would you, ChatGPT, write as an introductory pitch letter given the pain points of plumbing companies? And it will write that letter. And so this CEO is saving 2 to 3 hours a day by having ChatGPT write his draft one of pitch letters. Now, I think about ChatGPT just like an unpaid intern, okay? Like, I would not send to a client or a prospect what the intern wrote for me. But if they're a great intern, they might get 80% of the way there, and then I customize it. Mm-hmm. Or here's another example. If you're a doctor, like a urologist, and you have a patient, a male patient who has a high PSA count, you might want to do a certain test, but the insurance company denies it. You have to write an appeal letter. And for doctors, they have to, in the U.S., write 4 or 5 of these appeal letters every single week. And they can take up to 30 minutes. So this one urologist is having ChatGPT write his first draft of the appeal letter, okay, with references. And he never puts the confidential information of his patient into ChatGPT, okay? This is important. So he gets the letter back, adds in the name, customizes it, and instead of taking him 20 to 30 minutes, it's taking him a minute. So you have a urologist on a $250,000 a year salary. What is it worth to be writing 5 appeal letters a week down to 5 minutes? And so, ChatGPT, it's just the early stages of this game, but it is going to be a, transformative technology, just like in 1993 with Mosaic. That was the birth of the visual web, right? We had the internet before then. That was a demarcation in time, or an iPhone moment, right? In 2007 when, it was launched. So this is like this, we're at this magical time, And are we playing with the technology? Are we beginning, to see how could this improve our processes, make it more efficient, answer customer queries 24/365, and then have a second level of support with human. So do you know that like 80% of calls into IT support centers are people just resetting their password?
I know.
Like, couldn't an AI do that just as well as a human, allowing the humans to do more interesting things?
I agree. Here's the thing, Jim. I heard a guy, I've been doing a lot of research on ChatGPT, and actually, Ruben Hassid, excuse me, he's out of France. He has actually direct access to the AI and Microsoft C-suite team that's working on this. It's really, really amazing. And one of the things that he said to me, which I thought was really cool, he says the Steam engine, they said, created twice as much productivity. So if you used a Steam engine, you could expect to get twice as much of the productivity as you could if you weren't. They're saying that this is in excess of 50 to 80 times the amount of productivity, and using that same formula is what the effect you're going to see of ChatGPT. And
now, that's, I just want to jump in because
come on.
that's really interesting. I have not. So Kathy Wood is a financial analyst. She's a stock picker on Wall Street.
I know her.
Her ARK Invest is her company. She's brilliant. And their research that came out in January showed that by 2030 they could get a 10x productivity improvement if you use it for coding, like this is programming.
Okay.
So, and it's not that it will replace humans. You always need the human, but a human using AI, generative AI, in this case ChatGPT, will be 10x more productive than just a human. So companies that use it will outperform those that don't. But I've never heard the 50 to 80x.
80 times.
So I want to dig into Ruben's info and
the podcast that just came out actually today, and it's a fabulous podcast.
I saw it getting ready for today's one. How AI is prompting a thinking revolution, turning ChatGPT with Jason Garrett.
So this guy started using ChatGPT. It got released for a week, and he was in Berlin and happened to find it back in November of 2022. And he started playing on it, and then he started and he's really good at prompting. And here's something that he said that you just said that I want to piece together. Sometimes there's the Internet of Things, but there's the generating of things, is the way that I see it. Because you just said generational AI.
Generative AI, yes.
Generative. I'm hearing that now a lot, meaning that this AI is generating things, obviously, right?
So yes.
Do?
So yes and no. So this is really interesting, and I see the difference between lean thinking and innovation. So lean thinking in business is about making existing processes more efficient. Okay. Innovation is about creating things that don't exist. So lean thinking is really what ChatGPT is like, because ChatGPT went out to 175 billion parameters and studied them. I have yet to discover how many parameters ChatGPT-4 looked at, but the point is it looks at everything that's published on the web in the world and works to understand it. So it is a historical understanding. And ChatGPT itself only goes up till September 2021. Now, Microsoft Bing, that's going to incorporate ChatGPT, is going to be up to the moment, up to the day, current in terms of a search engine. But ChatGPT itself, September 2021. So it can't innovate. It's really about the people to innovate. So this is like having a really sophisticated way of looking at everything that is. But where we're going, that's up to people.
That's innovation more. I got that. One of the things that as I read about this, I see it as I see it as me being superhuman. Like I have 100 of the best content writers in the world, and I say I want this and this, and then by the things I ask it, right? I don't want to just know about everything about. Tell me everything about Jim Harris who lives in Canada. Well, I mean, like if I gave that to a bunch of people, they'd be like, all right, so I guess you just want to know like his background and you know who he's married to. And I said, no, tell me about Jim in his early years and how he actually tied it to technology and disruption, right? And then it does. And then I say, you know what? Put that more in a little funny voice, right? And it's prompting these things to do that. And that's exactly how you would do it in marketing or advertising firm, right? They come back to you with draft one and you look at it and you read it and all the experts say, no, let's go with what Susie said, but let's not do what Jim said, right? And now, instead of being a small business that can't afford to pay $100,000 copywriter, let alone 10 of them, you now have infinite amount of them, and you just have to learn how to talk to it, and it's pretty damn easy, you know? I mean, once you kind of figure out the prompts to get it exact. I mean, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing, and in my opinion, it's way more amazing than the iPhone. And the only reason I say that is it took us a while to figure out how we used the iPhone and everything because it was so dramatic. In the world we're in today, due to the iPhone, and I believe all the technology that's created the foundation, just to see, we didn't, as you said, we didn't see this excitement with the iPhone when it first came out in the first month or two, you know? I mean, there were some people, you know, but I'm talking about my wife knows what ChatGPT is, right? And I mean, she's technical, but that's not her thing that she likes to, you know, research and do. So
I agree with you, Jason, that this is a huge multiplier of productivity when we begin to use it appropriately. Now, one of the things I do with ChatGPT, you can force it to cite sources and the years studies were published. So, for instance, I'll say, I'll type into the prompt, show me how much value that AI is going to create over the next years, predictions from analyst firms, and from reputable peer-reviewed studies, but cite the sources and the years the studies were published. And it'll say, you know, okay, you know, Gartner says by this year AI will create, you know, $30 trillion of value, whatever. But one of these studies had the dates of 2017 to 2025. That means that study was published in 2017, so it's actually based on data from 2016. And that is such an old study for AI, right? So you should force ChatGPT to cite the sources
I like that.
and the years that something is published so that you can determine, hey, I don't want to cite that study because it's garbage. You know, 2016 data, we're in an entirely new world now. With, you know, we had a pandemic, ChatGPT has come out, you know, the nature of AI is fundamentally different. So we can't go looking at these 2016 data-based studies. So the other thing that I love about ChatGPT is you can use it in really fun ways. So you can say to it, explain to me blockchain like I'm a 5-year-old. Now, you can actually do that and get ChatGPT's answer. I'm now going to give you my answer because I like my answer better than ChatGPT's. But I want you to imagine, you know, Harry Potter has a magical diary. And all his friends have a magical diary too. And whenever Harry writes something in his diary, it automatically appears in all his friends' diaries. And once something is written, nobody can ever change it. So Harry can't change it. None of his friends can't change it. So it is a widely distributed, immutable ledger. So how you vote or financial records, there we go. That's blockchain, that's crypto. Now, I've listened to the world's experts globally, you know, way from back in '08, and like Don Tapscott is a friend. I love him. And you know, in '08, I'd listen to Don talk about blockchain and be like, I don't kind of get it. Anyway, so you can, of course I understand it now, but I worked at it very hard, but you can use ChatGPT to say, explain to me blockchain like I'm a 5-year-old. And so you can have really fun. I didn't do it here, but, you could say, write me a limerick about Jason Cass and Indie Tech 2023 in August, and it'll write you a limerick, and it's totally fun.
Dude, we've been messing with it in our marketing of it about, hey, write us this and write us that. And come on, we just came up with the concept 3-4 months ago, but it's able to just put it together, and it's like, that's exactly what we're doing. It's like, yes, this is going to be something for independent insurance agents like never seen before. It said something to that, and it's like, oh my God, that's why we're creating this. There is not, a tech, and it's like, man, how the hell? We don't even have much stuff out there. But it can put through it, like you said, when it has over 1 billion touch points, it can kind of, in a way, use common sense enough. Jordan Peterson.
Yes, I do.
Love the guy. Okay. One of the things he said the other day I thought was very, very crazy. He said, at the basis of human life, he says we know a lot of things. He says, but one of the things we do not know and we have no comprehensive of is how a toddler learns. How a 1-year-old, by hanging around other people and seeing other people, comes up with this intellect to be able to respond and communicate and understand touches and feels and whether they like food or don't like food. You know what I mean? And he said, what's amazing is for people to tell you that they think that they can restrain AI. And he was not being scary. He's just making a great point. Is if we don't necessarily know the true effects of how we build intelligence in a human from 1 to 10, how in the world do we know when we keep feeding this thing intelligence, how it's going to develop its intellect? And there comes a point in time that if ChatGPT 3 does 1.5 billion data points, there has to come a point in time where there's 1 trillion, 1.5 trillion that the brain does. Right? And there comes a point in time when as you add up in GPT 5, 10, 15, 20, it's going to get to that point in time. And I've even seen there's a little chart where it talks about human progression and then and it's when it talks about AI, and it's right around the 22, 23, 24, 25. And I've seen this 10, 15 years ago that there would be a point in time where the computers would surpass because of the chip size doubling and all that stuff of what the humans can be. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I really, truly don't. Because I think having something that's smarter than us and can do things that we can't do, obviously there's somebody's going to use bad out of that, just like they do anything, right? But I think that there's good in that. There's things that we look for every day. We use manual tools to take out a screw out of a screwdriver to take a screw out. That's us being superhuman. Right? We could not do that. Our fingers don't allow us to do that, but this tool allows us to. No one's scared of the tool, but the tool doesn't talk to you. You know what I mean?
So I've a couple things come to me. Back in 1867, 80% of people in North America worked in agriculture. Today, it's less than 2%. And so when farm automation came along, tractors and plows and everything, there were protests, right? It's going to take jobs. Think about all those barn workers and horse people, where are their jobs going to go? But if you look at it, we survived farm automation, but everything changed in our society. Jobs changed, companies changed, entire new industries were born, society as a whole had to change. So this is really a story about change, about innovation, about people, engaging them, training them, upskilling.
Yes.
And we find, as adults, we find change hard in many cases. So it's really helping people understand they're still going to have a job. It's just if their job was repetitive and boring, it's not going to be like if you were in a call center answering phone calls about people resetting their password. That's brain dead work. Oh my God, shoot me at the end of the day.
Hear you there.
So you're going to do something more interesting, but that means we have to upskill and move from repetitive kind of rote jobs to more thinking jobs. And back to the concept about innovation, it's really only people who are going to innovate. Like the technology, generative AI, ChatGPT, is going to help us with what has been already published. But how do we discover what could be? So hypothesis. I believe that if I use a different model in sales around insurance, I can get better results. That's a hypothesis. So, rather than travel 2.5 hours to meet a prospect, I'm going to meet them by video conference, by Zoom first, just for 5 minutes to determine if there's any interest, right? I just want a 5-minute call. And then, if there is, I will present something, a little bit deeper relationship. So that might be the way to do it. And then if it's a big corporate sale, sure, eventually I'll fly to Minneapolis and we'll have a face-to-face and go out to dinner, So it's a hybrid model then of sales. So let's qualify remotely by video conference at very low cost, and then deepen the relationship in person. So it's not an either or, it's an and. What is the best way to use this technology?
Jim, how right you are, and I know it because I can compare it against what other people are sometimes thinking. I heard Elon Musk say, I don't know, a year or two ago, he said that people seem to forget that it's people that create innovation. He said it's people that create technology. And it's a bunch of people who are working really, really, really hard over something that no one else probably sees or believes in, but they do. And that's how innovation comes about. And he says if we expect technology to just automatically innovate and evolve itself, he said, you're wrong. And he says, and where I will point to is I will point to the Egyptians. He said they built the pyramids and no one knows how they damn well did it. And he said, and we don't want to be those people that do that. We want to make sure that we keep people as the innovation leader, and they're the reason why we're innovating. So when you sit there and talk about innovation, and you said it 3 times now, it comes down to the people who are actually going to create the innovation. As you're saying, it was the lean. Is that what you said? The
lean, yep.
Going to help us be more efficient in it. But there's still the innovation that the human has to create.
And I want to just say why innovation is so essential today, Jason. And this is going to be one of the themes at the conference.
Okay.
That we're in the highest inflationary period in 40 years right now. Thankfully, inflation is coming down. But highest inflationary period. And the way to fight inflation is technology and innovation. So if you just go back to 1980, a phone call from, New York City to France was more than $10 a minute, adjusted for inflation to $23. $10 a minute. You can have 30 people on a Zoom conference for 3 hours brainstorming innovation for their global company, which by those standards would be more than $10,000 of long-distance calls, and it's free using Zoom, okay? From $10,000 to free. So look at the hugely deflationary impact of technology and innovation. We have to use technology. We have to be innovative in order to fight inflation in these high inflationary times. It gives a company the ability to either lower its prices or raise its margin in a competitive market. And so technology and innovation are absolutely essential today, especially for independent insurance brokers and agents, right? Absolutely. How can I get more productive in the same or less amount of time? What are the tools that are at my disposal that I never had 10 years ago, and my father who owned the agency never had, and his my grandfather? Like, wow. we have these amazing tools. How do we best put them to use? And you need to have an innovation focus. I find it absolutely amazing that, you can go out to CEOs, and these are actual results from a survey. They asked CEOs, is innovation important? And lo and behold, 88% said, yes, innovation is essential to my top line and my bottom line. Okay, great. And then they said, how many of you, do you have a formal system of innovation? And only 22% did. So that is insane. Imagine it was the same response to, sales. So do you believe sales are important to your company? Yes or no? And what were the, only 88% said yes for innovation. I don't know what the other 12% were thinking that day. No, innovation's not important. Anyways, whatever. That's another whole conversation. But so imagine, you said about sales, are sales important? Yes. Only 88% say yes. That's a strange result, but okay. And now only 22% of you have salespeople. Only 22% do sales training. Only 22% have a CRM, like a Salesforce, in order to track progress in the funnel. Only 22% tie incentives to performance. The other 80% of companies just hope that sales are going to organically, magically happen, like an apple falling out of a tree. It is bizarre, and yet that's what we're doing with innovation.
Makes sense.
So
we are.
I used to represent a guy called Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And Stephen believed and argued you had to train every single person in your company in the 7 habits to create a culture, a common understanding, a common language around innovation and engagement around problems. And it's the same thing. I have this same bias around innovation. Every single person in your company needs to be trained on what is innovation. What are the tools we can use when we have a problem? Because there are many different ways to approach innovation.
Yeah.
And how do we go about doing this as a team? And every single person needs this training because we're living in this rapidly changing environment.
Wow. Thank you very much, Jim, for your time. I really, truly appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you at Indie Tech. He's going to be around not only just in Wednesday morning, he's actually going to stay around Wednesday afternoon. He's going to be at one of our main sponsors' booth, which is sponsored by IPFS. Even said that he's going to probably be there that night for a little get-together. IPFS will probably have a little party like they always do. I'm not trying to put action in there, but they do every time because that's just IPFS believes and helps agency intelligence, and we believe in IPFS as well. Great technology company in our insurance industry. Most people think they're a premium finance company, but actually they do a lot more than that when it comes to technology. But it's really important, loyal listeners. I just want you to really hope you heard Jim. I hope you were able to soak up some of the intelligence that he has. And not only that, just the research, the knowledge, the inquisitive nature that he has, because this is what drives him. He's going to be there, as I said. Our Indie Tech Showcase experience is going on August 29th, 30th, and 31st. You can go to Indie Tech 2023. That's INDIETECH 2023.com. If you're a vendor, you can go there and find out everything. And if you're an attendee, you can get out there. And yes, we are open for registration. You can get in there and be a part of this. It's going to be exciting. In the afternoon and in the mornings, we're going to have education classes that are going to be rolling. That'll be all to do with technology, how to improve your tech stack, how to figure out automations, how to build renewal pipelines that are automated, all these different things that we already have lined up. Really, really looking forward to it. And keep in mind, the way that we're structuring this is that you're going to walk through the customer journey. And as you walk through the customer journey, you will experience the technology that is being showcased from Indie Tech carriers as to where you would use it upon the customer journey. Sometimes we get overwhelmed when it comes to technology, and we get scared by technology because we don't know where it fits, and we want to be cool and hip when we're talking about it, so we know what we're sounding like. Well, I'm taking all that away from you. Basically, you walk and you follow the colored carpets, and it's going to lead you through the 6 sections of the customer journey. And once again, it's going to showcase the technology that you would use at that point in the journey. So I look forward to that. And as I said, Wednesday morning, the 29th, right around 9 a.m. is when Jim will take the stage. And I promise you, once again, he will be the talk of the event. I guarantee you that. So Jim, once again, thank you for your time. Greatly appreciate it.
Jason, it was so great to be on the show here talking about this. It's so fun.
It is fun. It is fun. And you and I could do it for a long time, but we have other clients who need our assistance as well. So loyal listeners, just know, I do what I do because I do it for you. Tell me your thoughts and tell me your ideas, and I'm going to tell the world what you have to say. This has been Jason Cass, and I am out. All right, fantastic. Let's